Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and to day 5 of Inktober. Now today is one of those days. I had a little bit of an oopsie and I'll show you guys in a minute, but first of course I want to show you guys the lineup of colors for today's Inktober. I do faintly use the blue and dark green and I'll explain that in the video. And this is my oopsie. I took a lovely photo of my sketchbook when I thought that I had pushed record to do my sketch. So hopping in, you'll see that my sketch is pretty much already finished, and I went to stop recording so that I could adjust the camera and continue recording, and that was when I realized that I didn't actually record any of my sketch. And I think the biggest part that hits me the most with how disappointing that was is that I was really happy with how today's sketch came out, especially. I don't know why, but it was one of those where I was like, heck yeah, I really like that sketch. And then to see I didn't record any of it, I was like, well, okay. But it does happen. So yeah, that was today. But anyways, jumping in, I am using the Pigment Microns to ink the small details in the face. The reason I like using the Pigment Microns versus some of my other pens that I have is because once they are dry, they are waterproof. They're a permanent black ink, and it helps me to be able to lay it down without having to worry about them necessarily bleeding into my image or into the inking. So I can lay them down, start working on other parts of my Inktober piece, and kind of not stress going back over them and using a wash or using my ink and worrying about them either bleeding into the image or fading really. The only time I've noticed that the Pigment Microns tend to fade is if you erase over them. It will lift some of the pigment, but it's pretty rare, and it's not really anything that's noticeable, I guess is the best way to say it. But I decided for this picture, of course it is Ellen Ripley from Alien, and I did her design from the first movie. I actually took I believe it was a promotional image for the first Alien movie, and I used it as a reference and kind of just did her hair in a similar style, tried to go for a similar stance, and of course the only change up that I added was I gave her a cute little xenomorph for her to hold in her arms, and I kind of just created my own little design with him, giving him a similar style to a xenomorph, but a bit of a longer tail because I wanted to kind of have fun with the tail and let it stand out, because the tail, for whatever reason, was one of those things with the xenomorphs that stood out to me, because of course you have like the little head that pops out of its mouth and is like a second mouth inside its mouth, which is terrifying, which is actually based off of an actual mammal. I don't know if the goblin shark is a mammal, but if you haven't heard of a goblin shark, go check out that nightmare. Crazy. Anyways, the tail always stood out to me because it was one of those things where even if you were to block his, like the xenomorph's second mouth, it could always get you with its tail, which was always super sharp and equally as much of a weapon as the rest of him was. So for me as a young child, that was equally as terrifying. So I decided to kind of give him a ridiculously long tail and just have fun with it, which of course is the whole point of doing these Inktober's and these prompts. But as you can see here, I am laying down a wash, and the wash that I'm laying for her uniform is actually a dark green mixed with a little bit of black so that I can get more of like a grayish green or a muted green, and wash down with a bunch of water. The reason I like to wash out my inks is because I can layer it without having full pigment right away. I do love laying the full pigment for some colors, but if it's not necessarily a tone of color that I'm trying to go for, then I like to wash it out and kind of create the color that I want, or the color consistency that I want. Similar to how I'm doing the xenomorph right now. Of course, I want him to be black, but I want to be able to build the black so that you can see some of the little details that I added, like the little lines that are on his head and stuff like that. And if I slowly build the layers, it kind of adds that ability to create the detail and kind of add emphasis to everything. Same with how I have this paper towel in my hand, and right now I'm laying down a bunch of black wash, so it's more of like a washed out color, and if I lay it down and then dab it up, some of the pigment will remain, and I can kind of adjust to the shadowing as I go. So I'll lay down some of that pigment, lift it, lay it, pick it up, and all of the above, and kind of just keep doing that to get the right kind of tone that I want, the right kind of shadowing that I want. And that's really part of how I approach these things and how I've kind of learned to lay down shadow for myself. And even just laying down the washes, you'll see that I will lay down a good bit of wash and then I'll lift it, and that's more so because, well, I find that I do love the way that the wash lays with the color, that even in like clothing and stuff, if I lift some of that color, it kind of adds a nice texture and it gives me a softer tone than what I just lay if I were to leave the brush on there. So I really was very happy with how this one came out. The only solid color that I used was that yellow color, and I decided to do a wash of a background today, which is a blue ink. It's the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay Blue India ink. And of course I added a tint of black to the ink and then washed it out with a bunch of water. And then what I'm doing here is I am laying some strong pigment down. So I'm laying the wash that I created, and then I'm wetting my brush with water and kind of flowing it out towards the outside of the image, and then lifting it with the paper towel to more so give it the soft wash look that I want, because I didn't want a strong color behind her. I just wanted kind of a lay of color, and I had thought originally about doing a full dark background with like a galaxy look to it, but as I laid down the wash, I felt that it fit a lot better. And so here she is. I think she came together rather nicely. I'm really happy with this image, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this too. Also, on a side note, what is your guys' favorite scary movie? Or do you guys have a favorite scary movie? Is there a movie that you kind of go back to watch for Halloween? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I hope that you have a great day and take it easy.